I want to talk today about the content that's been coming into Fallout 76, because it's been a lot different than previous Fallout games, and this has kind of irked some people and made it a bit challenging to get to grips with it all. We've been having content drops every week or two, and it's generally somewhat small in scale. It will be a single event or quest, or the biggest one so far has been a short quest line. It's never anything that's like, oh, here's this huge 40-hour DLC drop. It's very small stuff that just adds a little bit to the game. And the community reaction to all of this stuff has been quite mixed for multiple different reasons. Before I fully go into that though, I want to talk about the different DLCs themselves. I say DLCs, it's barely even DLC, it's literally just content that's added to the game. It's difficult to talk about because of all these terms, but I want to talk about all that stuff. If you don't want spoilers for any of the new content in case you haven't played any of it yet, I know Sheepsquatch and Burrows are the most recent things, although by the time this comes out, Camera will be here as well. Won't be talking about that because I'm filming this before that happened, so no worries about Camera spoilers. But any content before that that's been added, I might be spoiling in this video, so you have been warned. First up, we got Biv, with the brewing and distilling update, and that was generally seen as pretty good. There were very few flaws handed out for that whole thing. My biggest at first was a bit too much hand-holding, which is something I've spoken about in a video recently, and kind of pertains throughout all of Fallout 76 to be honest. And also some limited alcohol variants. I remember, I think it was Fireberry or Firecracker Whiskey was supposed to be in with this update for the brewing and distilling, and it wasn't there. That was a bit of a shame, and some of the costs of brewing certain alcohols was a bit crazy. I think it's Pickaxe Pilsner or something, which requires flux. There's a couple of weird recipes and like minor grievances, but in general the update was pretty good. We got a couple of new locations, got a new quest, a whole bunch of new items, and a new crafting bench, which is a significant update, even though it is quite a small one. Like, you weren't going to be jumping in that for 10 hours. It's something where you do it for an hour or two on the first day, then each day you can come back and do a daily quest, and just kind of have it there as an addition. Next we had Fastnacht, which, man, I was so glad not having to pronounce that again, and yet I've included it in this. And that was just a single event, just a world event that went on for a week, and in concept it was really cool. A lot of us enjoyed it, we went over, it was a well put together event, there was a bit of variation to it each time depending on which robots spawned, so which ones you needed help, which made it more enjoyable to farm than if it was exactly the same thing each time. I think this event was really well put together actually, besides one fatal flaw, which was with the masks, because half of the masks were at like 0.0003% chance to be obtained, and I think I've only seen like on Twitter and Reddit 2, maybe 3 posts of the rare masks. Like, if going off of all the references I've heard to them on the internet, it'd be less than 10 occurrences I've heard of people actually having a rare masks, so that was a bit of a kerfuffle, is what I'm going to say on that note. And I made a whole video talking about that, and talking about RNG and Fallout 76 in general, because that brought up an already apparent problem in the game. But once again, that was an event that only lasted a week, and then it was gone. You can't do that now. It might come about next year, but even then that's not guaranteed. We also had a whole new mode added, survival mode, something I've talked about recently, and a mode I'm likely going to go back to. Survival mode has its positives and its negatives. It's way too much to talk about here. I'll say the negatives are potential griefing, but the positives are it gives a PvP environment for players who want that. It's both good and bad, but overall it's probably a good addition to the game to have it there. There's qualms and problems I think all of us have with this. Nobody thinks the mode is perfect, but overall I'd say it's good for it to be included in the game. However, once again, if you're not playing survival mode, then it doesn't make a huge difference, and the differences between survival mode and adventure mode are somewhat minor, to be honest. One bit of content update, I was going to say DLC again, I'm just going to call them DLC, I hope you will forgive me for this. One bit of DLC that was a lot bigger was Sheer Terror, which was a whole quest line talking about the Sheepsquatch and the whole mystery to find Calvin Manlow. This was a really interesting quest line. It's one I've been doing on the scavenger run because I think it's just entertaining to watch it being played. There's a lot of good story stuff in there. There's interesting quests. It's not just go here, find this item, kill this creature. It's kind of have a search around, learn a bit of a lore about this, kind of do some interesting stuff with it. It also added some interesting rewards into the game, and a few really cool cosmetics, which for once weren't exclusive to the Atom Shop, which I was really happy with, because I don't buy Atom Shop outfits and stuff, so more outfits in-game that don't require atoms is something I'm definitely on board with. And overall, I think that's probably the most positively viewed of all the updates. I know there's obviously always going to be a few problems here and there, but overall I think people really like that update. It's added a lot to the game, and it's got an event, a persistent world event at the end, which all of us can play and gets notified on the map, and it's pretty damn exciting. What people were very disappointed by were the burrows, which is, at the time I'm recording this, the most recent content update, and it was just a small dungeon underneath Harper's Ferry with a single quest attached to it. It was also fairly easy, however the problem was we got told this is suited for 2 level 50 plus players, and it'll be blah 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 blah, and it got a little bit hyped up in like the inside of the vault and all of that, and then we ourselves as a community were like, oh, the burrows, we're all getting decked out for it. I know I teamed up with someone to go for it because I thought it'd be tricky. It wasn't. It had a very abrupt end as well. The quest was alright, and the dungeon itself had some cool stuff, but it just felt a little disappointing with how much it had been built up. After the first time going through nice and slowly with someone on the Discord, I went back the next day and did it solo in less than 10 minutes. It's really not a huge content update, but it was kind of hyped up a little too much. And I think that's kind of a problem. The burrows itself isn't bad, it's good to have in the game. It's another quest, it gives you a new location, a bit of story, there's some interesting holotapes and lore-based stuff in there, and the location itself is really awesome. And it comes with a new bit of music, which is just great. In fact, I'm going to stop talking for a second and play you a little cinematic I've put together just to show how awesome a location the burrows actually is. So as you can see from that, the burrows, it's a cool looking place, there's great music, but it feels a bit too much style over substance for me. It's cool, but there's just not a lot there. It just felt a little bit lacking. Because we're getting a lot of updates. As I said, it's every week or two we're getting an update, but they're all pretty small ones. And that makes sense. If we're getting updates every week or two, it's not like we're going to have a whole 40-hour campaign added in. That's impossible for them to manage. Especially with having to do bug fixes, regular maintenance, and keep in mind, the people working on this are people. They're not robots working 24/7. They need to relax at times, they need holidays, they need some weekends off, and all of that stuff. We can't expect too much. But I feel that the fact that all of these content updates are very small is often leaving us lacking. Especially for people like myself, I suppose, who can quite easily compare the new content coming to Fallout 76 to the new content that was added to Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, where there were these large story-based DLCs that had like sweeping narratives and lots of new characters and excellent new weapons and great new locations, like Fallout 4, Far Harbor. Compare Far Harbor to the burrows, and man, they're worlds apart, but obviously they are. Fallout 4 had quite a few DLCs because it had a whole bunch of small workshop ones, but it's going to have nowhere near as much content as Fallout 76 is getting added to it. It's quite difficult to compare Fallout 76's new content to that in the previous Fallout games, because it is a completely different Fallout game. It's nothing like the single-player RPGs we've been used to. So if you've come from Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, and were expecting the DLCs to be like this, then you're gonna be taken a step back, because it's nothing like that. It's almost like patches which happen to have content in. And I'd say the biggest problem is that all of these small updates keep being really hyped up. I'm going to talk about the burrows again, because I spoke on that, and it was just so much hype going around. And it wasn't just them telling us, oh, you need 2 level 50 people, head down it underneath Harper's Ferry to find out what happened to this dead Brotherhood person. Just us being given that little bit of information made all of us in the community go, oh, the burrows, this is going to be a whole new dungeon, is it going to be instance, is it going to be a real challenge? I was thinking maybe there'd be like a legendary Mirelurk Queen at the end who we have to face down in an enclosed space, and we all got a bit excited for something that was very, very small and just kind of like, tiny little update. And I want to stress that overall these are good updates to the game. They make the game better. I mean, look at the game at day one, at launch, compared to how it is now. Obviously there's bugs and stability and all of that, but in terms of content, it's a million times better. There's so much more to do with extra events added into the game. There's Biv, I've already talked about, and survival mode if you want a more hardcore experience, and it's just going to keep getting better. I mean, between me recording this and me releasing this, the camera will have been added. So that's another thing that's come out. I must admit, I have no idea how good the camera is, because, like I say, this is being recorded beforehand, but that's yet another bit of content added to make this game even better. And I had someone in my comments recently say, Fallout 76 is like a good wine. It's better with age. And that's true. The older the game gets, the better it's going to be. Up until a point, obviously. Like 50 years down the line, don't know if anyone's going to be playing still. Sorry, Bethesda. But for now, pretty much every week or two, we're getting updates, the game's being improved. There are problems coming with updates. Most recently was not being able to mod or repair items properly or mod items properly. Yeah, there's been issues. I'm not going to deny that for a second. But overall, the game is getting better every week or two, which isn't something that normally happens with games. But that's because this is a live service game, and Bethesda and the devs there are constantly looking to improve this and add new stuff and make it interesting for us to play. And speaking both as a player and a content creator, I think that's great, because it's plenty of new stuff for me to do, plenty of stuff for me to cover, lots of things to get excited about, but I need to rein in my excitement at times. Because it's easy to think, oh wow, there's a new dungeon coming, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and start speculation and get too excited. Whereas instead, if I just stumble across something, it's 10 times better. For example, I stumbled across a quest. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's one of the unsolved mysteries. I wandered into a cabin with a bunch of cats, read an episode of Cryptid Hunter that was just lying on a shelf, and then a new quest popped up and it was like, hey, find out what happened to this guy who was in there and writing notes. And I did that quest, and it was great, and no one had told me about it. I didn't know it existed, hadn't been mentioned inside the vault. I think I'd actually seen someone post a video of it on my Discord, but I hadn't watched the video yet. I actually ended up watching the video whilst doing it to find out the password for a terminal, because I was kind of overexcited and wanted to skip through it a bit, which was very bad of me. But it was a really, really interesting quest, and the fact that I didn't know about it meant that even though I did it in like 10-15 minutes maybe, it felt really exciting and really cool. Because sure, it was only a small bit of content, but because I hadn't been shown it and been like, hey, this is going to be the greatest quest ever, I wasn't too hyped. And that quest had references to future DLC and previous stuff that was already in the game, and it was really cool. And I advise you do it yourself. I'll show a tiny bit of footage on screen whilst talking so you have some idea of what it is. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming in these content updates, but we're all getting a bit excited and expecting it to be better than it is. And I feel that the best thing all of us in general can do with the content is kind of go in just expecting the minimum. It's keep your expectations level. You can get excited about the new stuff, as I'm not telling you to be like all depressed and like, nah, the game sucks, blah blah blah, because that's just boring and dull at this point. But if you're going to get into the new content, just think to yourself, it might not be the best thing ever. If you imagine it as they're only having like a couple of weeks to work on it between each thing, then suddenly it seems amazing, like, wow, you did Sheer Terror in 2 weeks, which obviously they didn't, but this is an example. It's like a couple of weeks after this has come out, you've got Sheer Terror release, that's amazing. And it's been over the past couple of months, we're getting new stuff. And like I say, it's every single month we're getting new content. That's pretty great, and a good way to keep people playing. I know I would have stopped playing a couple of months back if the new content didn't start. Because I'd already started. I'd started reducing the amount of time I play. Now though, I'm playing a lot of the time, because I want to get all of the new stuff. I keep doing the new DLCs, I want to do the encrypted event more to get more plans from it. There's just so much to do, and it's really, really, really cool that we're getting all of this content on a regular basis. Anyway, I have more than said my piece there, probably rambled on a bit too much, so for those of you who have stuck around to this point, I thank you very much for watching and listening all the way up till this point. If you have any thoughts of your own, feel free to leave them in the comments as always. Additionally, subscribe for more Fallout 76 content, as well as more Fallout 4 content, I suppose. Yeah, I can save it at this point, because I got a Fallout 4 series starting, or may have already started already. Yeah, go check that out. Fallout 4 roguelike. It's gonna be good, please, I hope. I hope you all enjoy it. Anyway, like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and click the notification bell so you get notified when I post a new video. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.